to Inner Peace, Better Health, where we explore the deep connection between mental, spiritual, and physical well being. Today, I'm honored to have a guest whose story is nothing short of miraculous. Gregory Andrus has walked a path that most of us can't even imagine, from battling homelessness and alcoholism to surviving a gunshot wound to the head. But that moment of survival wasn't just a second chance at life, it was just the beginning of a profound spiritual transformation. Now, through his portraits of the Jersey Shore project and his writing, Gregory helps people find meaning, dignity, and purpose in their own journeys. And today we are diving into something as simple as walking, both physically and spiritually, that can lead us to clarity, healing, and peace. So let's get into it. Now, your story is incredible. So, can you take us back to that moment in the hospital? What went through your mind when the surgeon told you that you were a miracle?
I when I was laying in the street with a bullet in the back of my head, I really, really thought that was it. I was going to fade to black. And eventually I did. But several days later I woke up in the hospital and just was stunned. I was just like, what am I doing here? I was shot in the head. How am I here? And the doctor who pulled the bullet out of my head looked at me and said, "You are a miracle." And that was the first time in my life that I ever experienced something that was sacred and beautiful. And it really opened my eyes that there was this creator, this God who had looked out for me, this guardian angel. And that set me on a trajectory to try to make something of my life.
That's really remarkable. So, was it a turning point that led you from the hospital bed to finding faith and a new purpose?
That's a great question and probably the most important question. I spent a year looking at different religions and philosophies and ways of living life that could make sense of me having this second chance at life. And almost all of the religions and philosophies and so forth were telling me that if I take these steps, I can have a better life. But I was battling homelessness and I was living at the time in a house with crack addicts living downstairs. And I spent my whole life with it constantly falling apart. I knew I couldn't do it myself. I knew I couldn't take certain steps. Like I didn't have it in me. But then I discovered through young woman I started dating, this amazing human God named Jesus, and how if I just looked to him and followed him, he would take over and he would show me the way. And I didn't have to do it myself anymore. And that giving my life to him turned my whole life around.
That's really noteworthy. Now, your latest book, A Walk Along the Jersey Shore, explores walking as a tool for healing. So, what inspired you to take that 130-mile journey?
Yeah, I had a nervous breakdown in the fall of 2022 when I started having flashbacks and PTSD from unresolved childhood trauma. And I spent a year with a trauma therapist where we worked very hard on overcoming a lot of the causes for my trauma. And I finally had reached a point where we both agreed that I didn't really need the trauma therapy anymore. I had improved a lot. But I realized that I have new eyes now to see that are no longer marked by the ghosts of my past. I want to discover myself in a fresh way. I wanted to discover life in a fresh way. And I always have a love for the ocean. It's my favorite place to be. It's the most sacred place to be for me. And I live by the beach. And I had read a book by Henry David Thoreau called Cape Cod, where he walked around the Cape Cod Peninsula. I wrote a book about it. And I thought to myself, that's a great idea. I want to do that too. I'm going to walk the length of the Jersey Shore and discover myself and life and with fresh eyes again. And that's what I did.
Mm-hmm. That's really inspirational, Gregory. Now, Portraits of the Jersey Shore has touched, thousands of lives. So, what's one of the most profound lessons you have learned from the people you have interviewed?
I had to say that by far the common factor and why so many people talk to me, and why so many people were willing to share such deep stories with me that I just met these people on the boardwalks and the streets and asked them if I can interview them and they would share their stories with me. But the number one reason why so many people were so willing to do this was because I was willing to take the time to listen. And that by far the greatest need I think that humans need in today's world is someone to give them the dignity to just listen to them. We have such a busy life where we're always looking at our phones, looking at screens, looking at TVs, headphones in our ears all the time, earbuds. We don't listen to each other. We really don't. Um, and to have someone, even if it's someone that you never met before, to say, "Hey, I'm willing to listen to you," it brings them such a sense of self worth that they really gravitate towards. So, my answer to your question is people have a sense of self worth when people take the time to be with them, to listen to them. And that's what I've learned. The primary thing I've learned doing portraits of the Jersey Shore.
Indeed, a profound one.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now, in sharing these stories, do you see a common thread in what people are searching for?
That's a great question. There isn't necessarily a common thread of what people are searching for. I would say that people are almost in a way figuring things out for themselves through the process of talking to me. I've had people tell me, more than a few people tell me, that talking to me, a complete stranger, was like a therapy session because as they talk, they're able to learn things about themselves. And I think that people really just valued that, the self-discovery that they are able to undertake through the sharing of their stories. So I think that's a really important facet of it.
That completely makes sense. Now, many people struggle with faith, especially after experiencing trauma. So, what advice would you like to give to someone who feels lost or disconnected from their own spirituality?
Yeah, trauma is a major disruptor in life. It can cause a host of problems from mental health to physical health, cause problems in your digestion and in the way that a lot of times for people they don't they're not active anymore. They're too depressed, and I really think that one of the most important ways for people to overcome this is by getting outside, forcing yourself to go outside and to walk. And while you're doing that, is to pray. Open up those pathways, excuse me, to the spiritual, to your understanding of God, who I think is Jesus, to your understanding of the spiritual and the greater connection that you have in the universe. By taking the time while you're walking or while you're exercising to say, "Hey, I'm going through something right now. I need help. Can you please show up for me? Can you please help me?" And that's an incredibly valuable and important part of being able to enter into spirituality is through movement, through exercise. Because when I was depressed, when I'm laying on the couch or I'm not sitting because I can't move, I don't feel spiritual at all. I feel defeated. But when I get my body moving, it opens up the pores of the brains, of my brain cells, and it gives me a pathway to sensing something greater than myself again. Just through the simple act of moving my feet in front of each other. And especially walking in that nature. But if you just need to walk in your neighborhood, that's fine. A treadmill is fine. But I know for me, when I walk on the beach or I'm walking in the woods, it's a very special connection to the spiritual.
I'm sure this is gonna help all our listeners out there. So, what role does self forgiveness and acceptance play in the healing journey?
The acceptance of the healing journey. Can you ask that question a different way for me, please?
Okay, I mean, like self forgiveness and acceptance, how does it, plays a role in our healing journey?
Mm, okay,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great question. Self acceptance is something that I struggled with most of my life. I couldn't accept who I was when I was blackout drinking from my alcoholism, or when I'm living in a car or in the woods or under a bridge because I drank all my money away because I was numbing the pain from my past, from my childhood. It's impossible to accept oneself like that. But if you allow yourself to surround yourself with people who love you and accept you, it helps you to be able to accept yourself. And also, if you can tap into the divine, the creator, God, and sees that if you can see that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that you're not alone, but you were made with love, with purpose and meaning, you can then see, wow, I have self worth. I have value and dignity. If God can accept me and my friends can accept me, I can accept myself too.
So, walking helped you find clarity, but for someone who has just started their journey, what's a simple first step they can take today to find peace and purpose?
What the beautiful thing about walking is, um, for those who are physically capable of doing it, taking the simple act of just walking around the block to get yourself out of your house or whatever it is that you are that might be toxic for you or maybe causing you to feel down about yourself. Maybe you're stuck in a rut. Just the simple act of walking around the block, or maybe you have a wheelchair. Can you wheel yourself down the street and back just to get the fresh air? The movement is what's important. So I think that just being able to get the clarity from being outside and moving the body, there's an actual physiological situation when you're moving your body. It helps your mind to actually open up and to actually feel that clarity and to get that clarity. I often have so many ideas that I never would have had if I was still at home by the simple act of walking. It doesn't have to be 10,000 steps, which is what I like to do. It could be 500 steps. It could be simply just going around your block, coming back to your house. Simple as that.
That hits, that seems like it's so refreshing.
Yeah. It is.
Hmm.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if you could leave listeners with one powerful thought about healing and faith, what would it be?
It's a great question. Healing and faith. I really believe that, like, when I was shot in the head and my healing journey was paired with my faith journey, I found my second chance at life when the doctor removed the bullet from my head and saved my life. And found my second chance at life also when I found Jesus and started walking with him, which was at the same time I was healing from my physical trauma from the gunshot. Same thing with I would say to anyone, if you're going through trauma, if you're going through a hard time, if you're depressed, the physical act of just moving your body or just getting outside, getting the fresh air and prayer, the two together can bring so much more clarity than just you trying to figure it all out by yourself. Because when you're praying, you can know you're not alone. When you're in the act of prayerful listening, you can hear from your creator, sharing insights with you, sharing love with you. It's not just the process of talking, it's also listening. So as we're looking for healing, that divine encounter of the one who can heal us brings us great clarity of understanding that, yes, we are not alone, and two, that we will heal. We can lean into our God to find that healing. It's incredibly important.
That's indeed a powerful one. Gregory, your journey is a testament to the fact that no matter how dark life gets, there is always a way forward. Through faith, resilience, and something as simple as putting one foot in front of the other, you have shown that healing is possible. And to all our listeners, if today's episode spoke to you, maybe it's time to take that walk, both physically and spiritually. You don't have to have all the answers, just the willingness to start. Check out Gregory's book and Portraits of the Jersey Shore in the show notes. And remember, peace isn't found in the destination but in the steps we take along the way. Until next time, keep walking, keep searching, and keep growing.